Good day mga paps, this video is how to make an entry to an oil record book. But before that, if you are new in my channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates to my new uploaded video. Our vessel is under the flagship of Panamanian administration, and the official language of our ORB is English and Spanish. When making an entry to the ORB, the date, the code letter, the item number shall be written in the appropriate columns, and the required record of operation shall be written in the blank spaces. Each completed operation entry shall be signed by the officer in charge of the operation and the entry in ORB. Each page that is completed should be countersigned by the master. Each operation that is completed, a proper entry should be made immediately to avoid omission and errors. When making an entries to the ORB, the record is with indelible ink, preferably in black ink. Do not use pencil, and it is not acceptable by most authorities. In case the wrong entry was made in ORB, it should be struck by a single line in such a way that the wrong entry is still legible, and it should be countersigned, and the new correct entry will be made. It's not permitted to leave any full lines empty between each entry. If any lines leave empty, it should be struck with a single line and signed. In this video, each code letter, item number in part 1 and part 3 was made an example on how to make an entry to the ORB. To begin with our oil record book entry, our vessel is under the Panama administration and we are using Panama ORB Revised Edition 2020. Let's start with the part 1, Machinery Space Operation, Instruction for all ships. And these are the listed items to be recorded. Let's begin with the section A, ballasting or cleaning of fuel oil tanks. It should be written like this. First, we're going to write the date and the code letter, which is letter A. And then the item number 1. The item number 1 is the identity of the tank. And for example, the tank is fuel oil tank number 2, port side. We have item number 2. If it was cleaned, the date when the last time contained with oil, or if not cleaned, the type of oil previously carried in that tank. Example, in this case, it was low sulfur fuel oil. And to be followed by the item number 3, the cleaning process. Example, washed with pressurized water. We will use the 3.1, write the position of the ship when the cleaning start and completed. And to be followed by 3.2, identify the tank, which method has been employed. Example, rinsing, steaming, or cleaning with chemicals. Write the type of chemical used, example C-Clean Plus, and the quantity used, which is 0.2 cubic meter, and the unit, it should be in cubic meter. For item 3.3, 0.5 cubic meter quantity of cleaning water, and the identity of the tank which cleaning water was transferred. Example, build separated oil tank. And the total quantity retained in BSOT is 1.87 cubic meter after transfer. And it should be followed by rank, name, and signature of the person in charge and the date of operation made. For item number 4, ballasting, if the tank is not cleaned, the entry should be like this. Write the date, the code letter, the item, number 1, the identity of the tank, example, fuel oil tank number 2, port side. Number 2, the previous type of fuel in the tank. And 4.1, the position of the ship and the time, the ballasting start, then the position and time when the ballasting completed, followed by 4.2, the total quantity of ballast in cubic meter inside the tank, followed by the rank, name, and signature who carried out the operation and the person in charge, then the date of operation made. For the list of items, section B, discharge of dirty ballast or cleaning water from fuel oil tanks referred to under section A. The entry should be made like this. Write the date, code letter, the item number. Item number 5, identity of the tank, example, fuel oil tank number 2, port side. Number 6 is the position of the ship at start of discharge, followed by number 7 is the position of ship at completion of discharge. Number 8 is the ship speed during discharge, example, 12.3 knots. For the method of discharge, And we're going to use 9.1 if we're going to discharge through OWS 15 ppm equipment. And number 10, the total quantity of discharge in cubic meter. Example, 10 cubic meter. If we are going to discharge to reception facilities, item number 5, identity of the tank. Example, fuel oil tank number 2, port side. 6 is the position of the ship at the time of discharge. Then 7 is the position of the ship at completion of discharge. If the discharge to reception facilities, the ship is in anchorage or in port. Method of discharge 9.2, which is discharge to reception facilities, and then total quantity of discharge in cubic meter, example 10 cubic meter, and followed by the rank, name, and signature of the person in charge, then the date of operation made. Take note, don't forget the receipt from the reception facilities to attach in the ORB where the entry made. Failure to do so will lead to deficiency. Part 1C is the weekly inventory of oil residue or sludge. We will continue on how to make an entry to oil record book, part 1C. First, write the name of the ship, official number or call sign. Write the date, day, month, and year. Then the code letter, part 1C. And then the item number is 11.1. The identity of the tank, build separated oil tank, and the location is frame 21 to 29. The 11.2 is the capacity of the tank. It is 25.94 cubic meter. And then the 11.3 is the quantity retained in the tank. It's 1.05 cubic meter. Then followed by the rank, name, and signature of the person who carried out the operation, and the rank, name, and signature of the person in charge for the entry in ORB, and followed by the date when entry made in ORB. The next entry is the FODO sludge tank, frame 19 to 20.7. Just write the date, code letter, part 1C. Then the item number is 11.1 is the identity of the tank, FO and DO sludge tank. Then the location is frame 19 to 20.7. Then 11.2 is 1.24. This is the capacity of the tank. And then 11.3 is the quantity retained in the tank. Then followed by the rank, name, and signature of the person in charge for the operation, the rank, name, and signature of the person in charge for the entry in ORB, then the date when entry made. Next entry, just write the date again, the code, and then the item number 11.1, identity of the tank. This time it's LO sludge tank, frame 22.1 to 23.9. And then 11.2 is the capacity of the tank. It's 1.08 cubic meter. And 11.3 is the retained quantity in the tank. It's 0.72 cubic meter. Then followed by the rank, name, and signature of the person in charge for the operation. Then the rank, name, and signature of the person who made an entry to oil record book, and then the date when entry made. Another entry, just write the date, the code, and then the item number, the identity of the tank. This time is stuffing box LO drain tank, frame 19 to 21. 11.2 is the capacity of the tank. It's 3.79 cubic meter. And then the 11.3 is the retained quantity of in the tank. It's 0.72 cubic meter. Then the rank, name, and signature of the person in charge for operation. Then rank, name, and signature who made the entry in ORB. Then the date when entry made. The next item is the number 1 and number 2 waste oil tank. And then just write the date, the code letter, the item number 11.1, the number 1 waste oil tank located in frame number 9 to 10. And then 11.2 is the capacity of the tank, 1.05 cubic meter. and 11.3 is the quantity retained in the tank. It's 0.65 cubic meter. And then also in the waste oil tank number 2, just write the date, the code letter, the item number 11.1, the number 2 waste oil tank. It's the same frame 9 to 10. And then 11.2 is the capacity 1.05 cubic meter. And then 11.3 is the retained quantity in the tank. It's 0.65 also. Then it should be followed by the rank, name, and signature of the person in charge for the operation, and then the rank, name, and signature of the person in charge for the entry in ORB, and the date entry made. And lastly, for the weekly inventory, just write the date and then the code letter. This time it's code I. And then the item number, we don't have an item number because it's code I, it's additional entry. Then it is the weekly inventory of bilge water. Then followed by the bilge tank. It is located in the frame 9 to 14. Then the capacity of the bilge tank is 14.91 cubic meter. And then the retention in the bilge tank is 0.78 cubic meter, followed by the rank, name, and signature of the person in charge for the operation, and then rank, names, and signature of the person in charge for the entry in ORB, and followed by the date when entry made. As what you have seen, I've made a wrong entry, and then just struck a single line, then countersign, and to be followed by correct entry. We have an example for part 1C 11.4. Just write the date, the code letter, and then the item number. It's 11.4. This is for a manual operation. And then example, 0.10 cubic meter sludge from LO sludge tank. This is just like cleaning of sludge tank. It's a frame 22.1 to 23.9. That is the location of the sludge tank. Manually collected and transferred to bilge separated oil tank, frame number 21 to 29. And then the total retention in the bilge separated oil tank is the 1.86 cubic meter retained in tank after the manual transfer. Then followed by the rank, name, and signature of the person who carried out the operation. Then rank, name, and signature of the person who made an entry to ORB, and then the date when entry made. Let's have another example for the manual transfer. Just write the date, the code letter, the item number. 0.05 cubic meter used oil from deck crane, gear oil, manually collected and transferred to bilge separated oil tank, frame number 21 to 29. This is the location of the BSOT, and it should be followed by the total quantity retained in the BSOT after the transfer. Then as usual, just put the rank, name, and signature of the person who carried out the operation, and then rank, name, and signature of the person who made an entry to ORB, and then the date when entry made.
Part 1C, item number 12, is the method of transfer or disposal of oil residue or sludge. In making an entry, you should state the quantity of sludge transferred or disposed from the tank emptied, and state the quantity of content retained, and it should be in cubic meter. Example entry for item 12.1 is disposal of sludge oil residue to reception facility. The entry for 12.1, identify the name of the port, and then the entry should be like this: the date, the code letter, the item number, and then the name of the port, and the entry should be like this: 5.54 cubic meter of sludge from build separated oil tank, frame 21 to 29, this is the location of the BSOT, discharge to Sinia Shipyard Reception Facility, Sushan, China. And the 0.25 cubic meter is the retention of sludge in the build separated oil tank. Then the rank, name, signature, and the date when operation and entry made. Reminder, don't forget to attach the receipt of disposal made through reception facility.
The next entry is Part 1C 12.2. This entry is transferring of sludge from one tank to another. Like for example, FO and DO sludge tank to number 1 or number 2 waste oil tank, or LO sludge tank to build separated oil tank, or build separated tank to waste oil tank number 1 or number 2. And then the entry should be like this: the date, the code letter C, and then the item number is 12.2, then the quantity in cubic meter, which is 0.47 cubic meter sludge from FO and DO sludge tank. It is from frame 19 to 20.7, and then 0.55 is the retention of the sludge in the FO sludge tank transferred to number 2 waste oil tank, frame 9 to 10, and then the 0.90 cubic meter, this is the total quantity retained in the number 2 waste oil tank. Should be followed by the rank, name, and signature of the person in charge for the operation, and then name, rank, and signature of the person in charge for the entry in ORB, and then the date where the operation and entry made. The next entry in Part 1C is 12.3. This is the incineration of waste oil. And the entry should be like this: the date, the code letter, the item number, the 0.27 cubic meter sludge from number 1 waste oil tank, frame 9 to 10. This is the total quantity of sludge incinerated in incinerator, and to be followed by the number of hours, which is 8 hours. This is the time of the entire incineration of the 0.27 cubic meter. Then the 0.23 cubic meter, this is the retention of sludge in the waste oil tank number 1. The rank, name, and signature of the person in charge for the operation. Then rank, name, signature of the person in charge for the entry in ORB.
Part 1C 12.3 entry should always followed by the Part 3E entry. This is about prevention of air pollution from ships every time you use the incinerator on board. This is the example of entry: date, code letter, Part 3E, item number 6, the position and time of start and stop of using incinerator, and followed by item number 7, 8.3%. This is the average oxygen. This can be found in your instruction manual or in the type approved certificate of your incinerator. And lastly, item number 8, 1080 degrees centigrade. This is the combustion chamber gas outlet temperature. And then rank, name, signature of the person in charge of operation and entry in ORB, then the date when operation and entry made. The last item for Part 1C12 is 12.4, other method. State which method you use, and the method we use is evaporation through preheating of sludge with evaporation fan. This is the example of ORB entry. Date, code letter C. Item number is 12.4. 0.15 cubic meter water evaporated. This is the total amount of water evaporated in waste oil tank number 1 or number 2, frame number 9 to 10. This is the location of the tank. And the 0.75 cubic meter, this is the retained quantity of the sludge in waste oil tank number 1 or number 2 after preheating. And don't forget, in every entry, rank, name, signature of the person in charge of operation and entry in ORB, then the date when operation and entry made. This entry should be done if the transferred quantity of the waste oil in the waste oil tank decreases due to evaporation of water in the waste oil. For the Part 1D, this is the non-automatic starting of discharge, overboard transfer or disposal, otherwise of bilge water which has accumulated in machinery spaces. Example of ORB entry if we discharge through 15 ppm equipment. Date, code letter, D, item number, first the item number 13, 0.73 cubic meter bilge water from bilge tank. This is the total quantity of bilge water discharged, followed by item number 14. This is the time of start and stop of discharge. 15.1 Method of discharge. Discharge overboard through 15 ppm equipment and followed by the position of start and stop of discharge. And then the 0.58 cubic meter is the retention quantity of bilge water in bilge tank. And don't forget, after entry, rank, name, signature of person in charge, and date of operation and entry on ORB. The next entry under Part 1D is to discharge to reception facility. And the sample entry in ORB is like this: date, code letter, D, item number 13, example 8.70 cubic meter bilge water from bilge tank. This is the total quantity discharged to the reception facility, and followed by item number 14. This is the time and stop of discharge. And then the 15.2. This is the method of discharge. Example, Sinia Shipyard Reception Facility, Sushan, China. And the 0.25 cubic meter is the retention of bilge water in the bilge tank after discharge. And then followed by rank, name, signature of person in charge, and date of operation and entry made. And don't forget to attach the receipt of discharge from reception facility. Another entry in ORB under Part 1D, the transfer from slope tank or to another holding tank. Example of ORB entry: date, code letter, D, item number 13. Example, 0.20 cubic meter bilge water from the engine room bilge well, port side, and followed by item number 14, the time of start and stop of transfer. And 15.3 Method of transfer. Transferred to bilge tank, frame 9 to 14 via bilge primary tank. This is to settle, and if the water is oily, just to let the oil separate from the water. And the 0.78 cubic meter retained in tank is the total quantity retention in bilge tank after transfer. And then followed by rank, name, signature of person in charge, and date of entry and operation in ORB. For Code E, automatic starting of discharge overboard, transfer or disposal, otherwise of bilge water which has accumulated in machinery spaces. In this section, the bilge system has a float switches in the bilge wells to activate the automatic discharge of bilge water overboard through the oily water separator. If this system be used, the discharge of your bilge water through oily water separator is unmonitored. This section is not applicable in our ship because we don't have automatic starting of discharge, transfer, or disposal system. If you have this kind of equipment, the items to be listed are number 16, time and position of the ship at which the system has been put into automatic mode of operation to discharge overboard through 15 ppm equipment. Item number 17, time when the system has been put into automatic mode of operation for transfer of bilge water from bilge well to holding tank or bilge tank. Item number 18 is the time when the system has been put into manual operation. And always remember, in every ORB entry, the rank, name, signature, and date of operation and entry in ORB should be included. For Part 1, Code F is for the condition of filtering equipment. The entry example for failure or malfunction of your OWS. Date, item code, F. Item number 19. Time that your filtering equipment is not usable or not working. Followed by item number 21, the reason of failure. Example, oil content meter is non-functional, or you have a damaged oil content meter, or other components of your filtering equipment is non-operable. Followed by rank, name, signature of person in charge, and date of operation and entry made. Another entry for code F is item number 20, the time when your filtering equipment put back to its operational condition, or after renewal of the defective OCM or other parts of your OWS. Then followed by rank, name, signature of person in charge, and date of operation and entry made. Part 1, Code G, accidental or other exceptional discharge of oil. Example of entry in ORB, date, code letter, G, item number, 22, 15:30 hours. This is the time of occurrence of accident or exceptional discharge. Item 23, latitude 30 degrees, 55.94 minutes north, longitude 018 degrees, 22.07 minutes west, or at anchorage. This is the position of the ship at the time of accident or exceptional discharge happened. Item 24, example, 20 liters of LSMGO or lubricating oil. Item 25, bursting of fuel pipeline during bunkering operation, or a pail of lubricating oil washed out due to bad weather condition. This is the reason of accident or exceptional discharge happened. And then the rank, name, signature of the person in charge, and the date of entry made. Part 1, Code H, is for bunkering of fuel oil or lubricating oil in bulk. This is the sample entry in ORB. Item number 26, bunkering 26.1, Kaihan, Tokyo, Japan. This is the place of bunkering. 26.2, start and stop. This is the time of bunkering operation. 26.3, this is the type of fuel oil and the identity of the tank you are loading, and state the quantity you added and the total content of the tank you are bunkered, and it should be in metric tons. Followed by rank, name, signature of person in charge for the operation, and date of operation and entry made. If you made an entry for Part 1H, bunkering of fuel, this entry in ORB should be followed by Part 3C. This entry pertains to sulfur oxide or SOx, regulation for prevention of air pollution from ships. This is the sample entry in ORB. Date, code letter, Part 3C, item number 3. Position of the ship during the bunkering operation. Type of fuel, LSFO. API or density, API 17.9, and density at 15 degrees centigrade is 0.9470, and then the sulfur content 0.427%, and rank, name, signature of the person in charge of the operation, and date of operation and entry made. If you are taking 2 grades of fuel oil, example, you are also taking MGO, you should make a different entry to the ORB for the LSMGO. This is an ORB entry for LSMGO Part 1H. Item 26.1, the place of the bunkering. 26.2, time start and stop of bunkering operation. 26.3, this is the type of fuel oil, this time LSMGO, the identity of the tanks you are going to bunker, and state the quantity you added and the total content of the tank you bunkered. And this should be followed also by Part 3C entry. This pertains to sulfur oxide or SOx, regulation for prevention of air pollution from ships. This is the sample entry in ORB. The date, the code letter, Part 3C, item number 3. The position of the vessel during bunkering operation. The density at 15 degrees centigrade, 0.8442, or API 36.1 LSMGO, and the sulfur content is 0.007%. And then rank, name, signature of the person in charge of the operation, and the date of operation and entry made. Reminder, the required sulfur content for LSFO is 0.5% and below, and in LSMGO, it's 0.1% and below. Another entry for code H is bunkering of lubricating oil in bulk. This is the ORB entry. Date, code letter H, item number 26.1, place of bunkering. 26.2, time start and stop of bunkering operation. 26.4, total quantity and type of lubricating oil, example cylinder oil. Identity of the tank, quantity you added, and the total content of the tank after bunkered, and it should be in metric tons. Followed by rank, name, signature of the person in charge for the operation, and date of operation and entry made. This is for additional operational procedures and general remarks. These are the samples of additional and general remarks entry in ORB. Example entry for code I, weekly inventory of bilge water. Date, code letter I, weekly inventory of bilge water. Identity of the tank, bilge tank, frame 9 to 14. This is the location of the tank, and the capacity of the tank, 14.91 cubic meter. And the 1.06 cubic meter, the quantity of bilge water retained in bilge tank. Code I for the wrong entry. For the wrong entry from the previous date, struct it with a single line and make a correct entry. Example of ORB entry for the wrong entry from the previous date. First, the date when the wrong entry was made, code letter I, wrong entry, followed by the correct entry. Date, code letter, example, code C, the item number, example 12.4, entry for evaporation, 0.29 cubic meter water evaporated from number 1 waste oil tank, frame 9 to 10. This is the location of the tank, and 0.52 cubic meter, this is the retained quantity in the waste oil tank. Rank, name, signature of the person in charge for the operation, and date of operation and entry made. For code I, missed entry. Missed entry, date when the operation made. Code I, missed entry, followed by the operation you missed. Example, I remember on this day, March 15, 2024. The date, March 15, 2024. Code letter C, item number 12.2. 0.45 cubic meter sludge from LO sludge tank, frame 22.1 to 23.9, 0.20 cubic meter retained in tank. This is the retention of sludge in LO sludge tank after transfer. Transferred to number 1 waste oil tank, frame 9 to 10, 0.87 cubic meter total retained in tank. This is the total retention of sludge after transferred in waste oil tank number 1. And then the rank, name, signature of the person in charge of the operation, and date when operation and entry made. Another sample for code I entry. Date, code I, unsealed OWS overboard valve to discharge bilge water through 15 ppm equipment, normal operation. Tag seal number 2200699 replaced with tag seal number 2200722. Then, the rank, name, signature of the person in charge of the operation, and date of the operation and entry made. Sample entry for code I, additional operation. This is filtering equipment safety device test. Date, code letter I. Carried out the test in OWS OCM 15 ppm alarm and 3-way valve proper functioning. It was found in good working condition. This is the result of your test, followed by rank, name, signature of the person in charge, and date of operation and entry made. Another part 1 code I entry. Date, code letter I. Carried out 1 hour water circulation of oily water separator bilge tank to bilge tank. Time start, local time and UTC. Position of the ship, time stop, local time and UTC. position of the ship, name, rank, and signature of the person in charge of the operation, and date of the operation and entry made. You can use code I for the additional operation and general remarks you want to make an entry to ORB that has no specific code in ORB Part 1 and Part 3. Part 3, Annex 6, Regulations for the Prevention of Air Pollution from Ships. Instruction for all ships. These are the list of items to be recorded. Record requirements for operational compliance with NOx Tier 3 emission control areas. C. Sulfur oxides. D. Volatile organic compounds. This is applicable for tanker vessels. And E. Every time in use of incinerator on board. Date. Code letter. Item number 1.1. 10 kilograms of R449A Freon recharged to accommodation air condition unit. And then position and time start of recharge and position of time finish recharge. Rank, name, and signature of the person in charge of operation and date of operation and entry made. For code part 3A, item 1.2. Date. Code letter. A. Item number 1.2. Carried out leak test, cleaning of evaporator fins, and cleaning of condenser tubes of accommodation air condition unit. Position and time start of cleaning and maintenance, and position and time finish cleaning and maintenance. Then rank, name, signature of the person in charge of the operation, and date of operation and entry made. Code letter part 3A, item number 1.3, 3.1. Deliberate discharge of ozone depleting substances to atmosphere. ORB entry sample. Date. Code letter A. Item number 1.3, 3.1. Technician deliberately discharged the R499A Freon to atmosphere for repair of expansion valve of accommodation air condition unit. Position and time start of discharge, and position and time finish discharge. And then rank, name, signature of the person in charge of operation, and date of operation and entry made. Code part 3A, item number 1.3, 3.2. Non-deliberate discharge of ozone depleting substances to atmosphere. Date. Code letter A, item number 1.3, 3.2. Technician accidentally discharged Freon R449A to the atmosphere as he accidentally dropped the Freon bottle and broke the charging valve. Position and time start accidental discharge, and position and time stop accidental discharge. Then rank, name, signature of the person in charge of operation, and date of operation and entry made. Code part 3A, item 1.4. Date. Code letter A. Item number 1.4. 15 kilograms R449A Freon discharged to Oceanwide Reception Facility, Houston, Texas, USA. And then the rank, name, signature of person in charge of operation, and date of operation and entry made. Reminder, don't forget to attach the receipt of discharge from reception facility. For code part 3A, last item 1.5. Date. Code letter. Item number 1.5. 30 kilograms Freon 449A received in Port of Houston, Texas, USA. Rank, name, signature of the person in charge of operation, and date of operation and entry made. Part 3B. This is the record requirements for operational compliance with NOx Tier 3 emission control area, SECA or ECA zone. This entry applies to both Tier 2 and Tier 3 certified only. Example of ORB entry. Date. Code letter part 3B. Item number 2. Time of entry or exit from SECA or ECA zone. Position at the time of entry or exit into SECA or ECA zone. The status of machineries, whether it is on or off. Main engine, Tier 3. Status, on. Number 1 generator engine, Tier 3. Status, on. Number 2 generator engine, Tier 3. Status, off. Number 3 generator engine, Tier 3. Status, off. Write the rank, name, signature of person in charge, date of operation, and entry made. Another entry for part 3B. Item number 2. The use of generator engine while in SECA or ECA zone. Date, code letter part 3B. Item number 2. Time, position, and status of generator engine, whether it is on or off. Then write the rank, name, and signature and date of operation and entry made. Part 3C, sulfur oxide. If you made an entry for Part 1H, bunkering of fuel, this entry in ORB should be followed by Part 3C. This entry pertains to sulfur oxide or SOx, regulation for prevention of air pollution from ships. This is the sample entry in ORB. Date, code letter, Part 3C. Item number 3. Position of the ship during the bunkering operation. Type of fuel, LSFO. API or density. API 17.9 and density at 15 degrees centigrade is 0.9470, and then the sulfur content 0.427%, and rank, name, signature of the person in charge of the operation, and date of operation and entry made. Another entry for Part 3C. This entry should be made when entry or exit in ECA or SECA zone. When entering SECA or ECA zone, use the completion of changeover when making an entry to ORB, and exiting the SECA or ECA zone, use the start of changeover in making an entry to ORB. Sample entry in ORB for Part 3C, item number 4. Date, code letter, Part 3C, item number 4. Date, time, and position of the completion of changeover from LSFO to LSMGO, and followed by the volume of low sulfur used in each tank. Then the rank, name, and signature of the person in charge and the date of operation and entry made. For Part 3D, volatile organic compounds, this is only applicable for tanker vessels. Part 3E, incinerator on board every time is used. Part 1C 12.3 entry should always followed by the Part 3E entry. This is about prevention of air pollution from ships every time you use the incinerator on board. This is the example of entry. Date, code letter, Part 3E. Item number 6. The position and time of start and stop of using incinerator, and followed by item number 7, 8.3%. This is the average oxygen. This can be found in your instruction manual or in the type approved certificate of your incinerator. And lastly, item number 8, 1080 degrees centigrade. This is the combustion chamber gas outlet temperature. And then, rank, name, signature of the person in charge of operation and entry in ORB, then the date when operation and entry made. Another entry for Part 3E, every time the use of incinerator on board. Example of ORB entry. Incineration of garbage. Item number 6, time start position and time stop position every time the use of incinerator on board. Item 7, 8.3%, average oxygen, the temperature of the combustion gas chamber, and then rank, name, and signature of the person in charge of the operation, and the date of operation and entry made. Thank you for watching. I hope this video enlightens you on how to make an entry to oil record book, and let us keep safe always, and God bless us all.